So if my community adopts a rate that is higher than the voter approval rate, what recourse does the community have to get that lowered?
If they exceeded that voter approval rate, they adopted that, then the citizens, say, for instance, a city went above that voter approval rate, the citizens would have the opportunity to petition to roll back that rate to whatever the no new revenue rate was.
On the ISD tax, the state of Texas sets the M&O rate
They
based
tell
on.
them what their M&O rate is, basically. Yes.
So the only thing we could control on the ISD tax is the debt.
Is the debt.
Okay.
That is correct. Salaries are in their M&O.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's set by the board. You know, they determine what they're paying their superintendent. They determine what they're paying their teachers, their principals, et cetera. So, I mean, obviously, you know, there's within a range, you know, that everybody's going to be paid, I guess you could say. But
If the state of Texas sets that rate, then we can determine
how's that money
it's
going to be
spent.
allocated?
Okay.
Yeah. How's that money going to be spent?
And that's the school board that would do
That's
that.
the school board. Yes, that's your ISDs. Every entity is required to have a public meeting to discuss their rates before they adopt a rate. So they will propose, before they have a public meeting, a rate. Let's just say, instance, for the county is going to be 27 cents. That's your county and your FMLR combined. They are required to have a public meeting where the public's invited. They're encouraged to come, you know, give their opinions, give their response to whether they think the rate's too high or maybe if whatever they think it ought to be higher. So they are required by law to have at least one public meeting before they set and adopt that rate.
Is that annually?
Annually, yes. Yeah, that's done usually it's in September. That's when most entities set their rate.
We have a set rate. Probably if we get any relief, it would come from the state of Texas
Yes.
as far as capping the increases on that. Is there
Right.
anything in place where if we keep increasing the values, which we do, our
Right.
values go up
Right.
every year, that the rate automatically goes down, or we have to vote to lower the rate so that our total tax doesn't just...
Remember, it's not by properties, it's by entities. And that, you know, here again, if you're going to do something to a specific type of property, that's going to come from the state. That's not, you know, every entity has every kind of property in it.
So if we said in Wise County, our property values, commercial, residential, have gone up 30% this year, is there something in place where we look at that and go, okay, well, we need to lower our rate? Or is that what you were talking about earlier, where we approve that rate every year?
Yes, it's the rate. There's nothing that says, you know, 30% is too much of an increase. There's
Right.
nothing that you could go to any of the entities and say, hey, I'm protesting the amount of increase.
Yeah, my property value's gone up too high.
I mean,
Right.
you know, I mean, obviously protest your value, but no, I mean, not as a whole, no.
And so you have the M&O rate for the schools that we set every September, and then also for the city and county that we set
Yes,
every
yeah,
September.
yeah,
and that's one meeting every year.
They're required to have at least one public hearing to discuss those rates
So if
that
we-
they're going to set.
So if we went to that public hearing and said, look, guys, our values across Wise County have increased by 30%.
Right.
Can we get this tax rate down? That would be the way to do it.
That's exactly right. They used to call it effective rate. Now they call it a no new revenue rate, which now our office does figure this. It's basically your rate with this year's values that determines the increase. That's called your no new revenue rate. Okay? That's
To keep you from generating a huge surplus of revenue just because your values are going up.
And then you have what they call a voter approval rate. Okay, so the county or any entity is required for the most part to stay below that voter approval rate. If they don't stay below that voter approval rate, then the citizens can petition for an election to have that rate rolled back to whatever your no new revenue rate was. There's basically a limit where they can go up to. If they go over that, voters have an opportunity to petition that rate to lower it back. That doesn't happen very often. It did happen this year in the city of Rome. City of Rome went above their voter approval rate. The voters had an election. They basically petitioned. They have to vote for it, and they voted to roll back that rate to their no new revenue rate, which meant for our office for the taxes that we had already collected because it was voted on after October 1st and people were paying taxes, that we refunded X amount of dollars to the people in the city of Rome.
And how many people typically attend that meeting every year?
The only ones I usually ever go to are for the county. I don't go to the schools. I don't go to the cities. The counties, we may have one or two people that come.
So nobody's
Yeah.
really paying attention.
No, that's correct. Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
so you'd have a county meeting, and then each city would have a meeting,
Each city has their own meeting.
and each school district has its own meeting. So if you were worried about getting those rates down to a more affordable level, that's where you'd want to start.
That's where you would go.
That's where you'd go, and nobody goes.
Right. That's it.
Good to know.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that-
Well, I don't go either, so
So-
I gotta get to work on that.
They try and usually, they have it during the day or sometimes in the evening, it just kind of depends. They can set whatever time, but they try and do it in a time that's convenient, for most people, that would be available for most people.
Can you tell us about the sheriff's sales and how that works?
Yeah, we typically have a couple of sales a year. We usually have one in the spring and one in the fall. We've got one coming up October 1st. There's a long process before a property gets to a sheriff's sale, or we call it a tax sale. But there's basically involves our collection attorneys having to file a suit and take a judgment on that property, which means notifying anybody that might be an heir to that property and giving them the opportunity to either pay the taxes or at least make them aware that there are taxes that are due, and that if they're not paid, before that date of that sheriff's sale, then that property is going to be sold.
So have you seen an increase in property sales for October? How many do you normally have?
Most of ours are mineral properties because minerals they're just kind of a different cat. They're just different. We have so many minerals that split. Somebody dies and they've got a mineral property and then they've got 4 heirs. So, where one person was receiving the benefit of those minerals, they're now going to 4 different heirs. Okay. Those heirs, maybe 2 of them know about it. Maybe 2 of those heirs are deceased. Okay. And so part of them are getting paid, part of them are not getting paid, and they continue to split and split and split over time. And so we see the small percentage amounts of minerals that are unaccounted, that basically we don't, we've lost contact with any of that family or any of those heirs on those minerals. So we sell a lot of minerals. They may be small percentages, but we sell a lot of those because Wise County has a huge amount of mineral account.
So if you have 5 people that own one property and each of these 4 pay their mineral taxes, property taxes on their mineral properties, they get to keep theirs, just the one person
we would only sell. They would be in different names. They may be part of the same well, part of the same account, that those minerals attach to, but there's just one heir maybe, or one, whoever owns that one is not paying them.
Right.
Okay. They would be sold. As far as real property, we don't sell a whole lot of real property. I mean, we make a strong effort to let those people know that their property is getting ready to be sold. We never like to sell anybody's homestead. If we can avoid selling a homestead for somebody, we try everything we can to work with them. We'll enter a payment agreement at the time. We will do that with them. And by law, we have to give them an opportunity, if it's their homestead, to pay those taxes. But there are some that are not homesteaded, that maybe for whatever reason, they can't afford to pay them, or, it's been a property that, belonged to their great-great-grandmother years ago, and they didn't even know that it existed, and they don't want any part of it. They don't want to pay that X amount of dollars, that just as soon let it go to sell. And that happens some, not a lot, but some. A lot of it, what's the property worth versus what, amount of taxes are owed.
So if that happens, and let's say you had a $200,000 property that had, I don't know, $50,000 worth of back taxes on it.
Right.
What would you guess something like that would sell for? Does it sell closer to the 200 or the 50?
Typically, we've seen it sell closer to what the value of the property is. So we start out, the bidding process starts out at the amount of taxes that are due. So in your scenario, if there's $50,000 taxes that are due, that's where the bidding is going to start. Okay. Typically, I mean, here recently, we've seen most of those properties sell for whatever the value of the property is or more.
Whoever owned that property that has all the, why wouldn't they just sell it, pay off their taxes, and keep the gain?
They don't want to fool with it.
They don't want to mess with it. You know what? They may live in Wyoming. They have no interest in owning, 2 acres in Wise County. They know that they're going to have to pay taxes on it every year. What if they want to sell it? Then they got to find a realtor. They got to find a way to list it or go through the process of trying to move that property. Someone may just not have the money to pay it.
The real property sells at about fair market value, sometimes higher. What about the mineral properties?
They're across the board. They really are. They will bring maybe just what the taxes are at the most. And then you'll see some that sell for, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 times whatever the amount of taxes are. There's a specific clientele out there for mineral accounts. I mean, those people that buy them, they know their value. They know if this is a good value, if this is a good purchase, or if this is one that we're just taking a risk on, that there's not a lot of value in these wells. Those people know that. They do their research before they come.
Right.
Yeah.
So they may get a good deal, but probably anybody looking for a property would not. I always wondered about those.
Yeah, I mean, they're interesting. We've seen a lot of people at our tax sales recently. We have good tax sales in Wise County. Back to your question too, if they're the heir on that property, there's some proceeds. Say the taxes that are owed are $50,000, and it sells for $75,000 to $100,000, and they're the heir to that property. They're going to get those extra proceeds.
Oh, really?
So they just got it sold for free.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yes.
I was thinking that the county.
No,
Okay.
no. They're actually going to get those excess proceeds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't want to get stuck with a lot of auction properties.
Say, for instance, back to, the taxes are owed at $50,000 and we don't get any bids at all, or we don't get, an opening bid of that $50,000. It's called what they call a struck off property. And then that actual property goes back to the highest taxing entity, which is always the school. They're always owed the most money. So that property basically becomes the property of the school. The other entities would still get their money, but somebody could come in and say, hey, you know what, I'll give you $20,000. So whoever's owed the most money can actually make the decision on whether to sell that property or not. But it would still be, that $20,000 would still be split between the taxing entities somehow.
Right.
That works, or that percentage would work out.
How is it determined where the taxes that are collected go into the community or into Wise County? Parks and Rec, improving roads, the schools, things like that. How does that get determined?
So that's up to the entities themselves. When they set their budget at the beginning of the year, they've got X amount of dollars that are going to each one of those departments. Say the city's Parks and Recreation department, they've got a line item in there for $100,000 that's going to their Parks and Recreation. The city or entity would set their budget, and that's where that money would be allocated to per their budget. Those would be up to the entities themselves to come up with where that money is allocated for those departments.
So the city, the county, the
Cities,
ISD.
the counties, right? Like, just for instance, what goes to the sheriff's department? That's, what goes to EMS? What goes to our office? We sit down and go through that budget every year with the, primarily it's the judge and the auditor, and then, they determine what amount each one of those departments need, and then throughout the year, that's how their money is allocated to those departments.
So who sets that budget? Is it the county judge?
County judge and the
So
auditor and
JD?
the commissioners, yes. Yeah.
So JD
There's a
actually prepares the budget.
It's usually, between JD and the auditor, I think, that come up
Is
that
it an
work
external
together.
auditor or
That's an internal. That's
Internal
the,
auditor.
Yeah, that's the appointed auditor for the county.
so he sets it and then who approves it?
Well, they basically hold meetings with all the department heads and the elected officials for each of their departments. And, we'll present a budget to them. They'll say yay or nay, basically, why do you need,
Right.
X amount of dollars for this line item? We're going to have to justify what we need for office expenses. In our case, where our office may be printing of statements, we need X amount of dollars for that. So they just go through every budget, each department head's budget and approve it. And then based upon whatever, that comes up to, that's how they set the total budget for the county. And that's usually, like I say, done between the judge and the auditor, and then the commissioners. They'll approve it. They'll get their opportunity to review it, look at it, approve it. Then once that budget is set, then they usually they figure out what tax rate they would need to fund that budget.
So they set the budget first and then set the tax rate.
That's typically how it's done. They're tied together. They have an idea what their rate is going to be without saying 25 cents right now. They're not looking to raise that to,
50.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're trying to work within what they have.
Monty, does the tax office have the ability to waive penalty and interest?
The short, quick answer to that is no, we do not. So remember, the funds that we collect belong to each one of the entities. It's not our money. This is money that belongs to the entity. So the only ones that can actually waive that penalty and interest, because it's their money, is the entity themselves.
Okay.
So if somebody had a request to have their penalty and interest waived, we would say you need to contact your school, you need to contact your city, you need to contact your county, and go to them to request a waiver of penalty and interest. That's per the property tax code.
Well, Monty, thanks so much for coming in. We really enjoyed discussing these topics.
Thank you, Monty, and hopefully we can have you back again.
I'd love to come back. Thank you for asking me. I appreciate the opportunity. I hope it's helpful.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
And Monty, if our viewers have any questions for you, what is the best way to get in contact with you?
Sure, you can always go to our website, co.wise.tx.us. Has our email there. You can reach out to us there. We're not hard to reach at the office. If you ever want to stop by, you can come into the office. And, if I'm not there, there's plenty of people there that can answer your questions and help you.